A lot of people think the world is just bad stuff out there, but James 4 shows us something uglier. The world is not just entertainment or just culture or just trends and money, status, platforms, fashion, politics, applause, and success. The world is a system, and that system has one goal, which is to train you to need approval from something other than God. That is why the world is so nasty because the flesh says, feel this, but the world says, prove yourself. Prove that you matter. Prove you're successful or attractive or important or intelligent or powerful. Prove you are somebody. But here's the deception: the world does not just want you to have things, it wants your identity attached to the things. It does not just want you to make money, it wants your worth attached to the money. It doesn't even want you to be seen, it wants your peace attached to being seen. It does not just want you to accomplish, it wants your soul addicted to applause. That is why James 4 says friendship with the world is enmity with God. That word should disturb us. Enmity, hostility, opposition, because the world doesn't politely disagree with God. The world competes with God. It offers you a counterfeit throne. It says you do not need to be rooted in God, but rooted in image. You don't need to be obedient. You need attention. You don't need holiness. You need influence. You don't need identity. You need validation. And the moment you start drinking from that system, it poisons you slowly. You start checking numbers more than your heart, and performing more than serving, and comparing more than creating, and editing your convictions so people will keep clapping. You start asking, will they like me? Before you ask, is this true? That is the filth of the world. It makes you trade your assignment for acceptance. It makes you trade your calling for clout. It makes you trade your covenant with God for a seat at the table that still will not feed your soul. And James doesn't even soften the language. He says, you adulterers and adulteresses. Why? Because worldliness is spiritual cheating. It is when the soul that belongs to God starts flirting with the system that hates him. It is when you want God's blessing but the world's approval, God's promises but the world's applause, God's name but the world's identity. That is nasty because the world will use you. It will hype you while you're useful, it will crown you while you perform, it will clap while you compromise. Then the moment you stop feeding the machine, it forgets your name. The world doesn't love you. It consumes you. It studies your insecurity, sells it back to you and calls it ambition. It studies your loneliness, sells it back to you and calls it connection. It studies your fear of being invisible, sells it back to you and calls it influence. But it's bondage because you need their approval to feel valuable. They own you. If you need their applause to feel confident, they rule you. If you need their validation to speak truth, they become your master. That is the battlefield of the world. The world tempts you through ambition, not godly purpose, not stewardship, not building something meaningful, but corrupted ambition. The ambition to be seen as somebody, even if you lose yourself in the process. So James confronts us with one question: whose approval is discipling you? Because you cannot serve God faithfully while begging the world to certify your identity. You cannot live from truth while bowing to image. You can't even be free while public opinion holds the leash. So the answer is not to hide from society. The answer is to refuse to be discipled by it. Use the platform, but do not worship the platform. Build the business, but do not bow to the business. Make the money, but do not let the money name you. Serve people, but do not make people your God. Because the world says prove yourself, but God says live from who I already called you to be. The world says earn your identity. God says walk in the identity I gave you. The world says chase the crown, but God says seek first the kingdom. And so in the next video, we're going to talk about the devil, because the flesh attacks appetite and the world attacks ambition, but the devil attacks attitude, and his favorite doorway is pride. Titans aren't born, they're forged.